and I'm not an experienced investor, but for me, it is about believing in and buying into the founder as much as it is about, hey, they've got a great problem they solve and they're solving it in a really cool way, as can the founder make it happen? Are they really driven? Are they going to work their butt off for it? And the reason that's important is obviously for what's right in front of us is that business, but also if I'm going to invest my money and my time in them, I need to believe in them deeply and want to do that. And this business may or may not work, which may or may not be their fault, but investing in them for me is a relationship, and it might mean their next business is the one that works really, really well.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Neil Weitzman on the mic. He is a GTM advisor and fractional CRO operator, founder of Porch, and someone who works hands-on with early stage founders to turn raw ambition into repeatable go-to-market execution. Thanks for coming on, Neil.
Thank you for having me. I love doing these sorts of things. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, likewise. So I'd love to start where we start with every guest, which is what's your origin story? What's your background?
Wow. Big question just to start. Grew up in corporate. I won't bore you. I'm older these days, Brian, so it'll take forever to tell you the whole story. I'll summarize the early years by just saying I grew up in more of a corporate world, big companies like Deloitte and the company called Nielsen, big data research, market research company. Spent many years in larger enterprises learning about leadership and managing people. I'm grateful for it, but I always had, I guess, what I call the entrepreneurial bug or wanting to do something on my own. About 7 or 8 years ago, I started, about 15 years ago, got into GTM advising, with early stage entrepreneurs, traditional advisor, startup advisor types of stuff. Loved it, caught the bug, the incredible respect I had and the honor of being able to work with founders who, in many ways were risking everything to go after their dreams and goals was contagious, very different than corporate world, of course. So I really, really admire founders who do that. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I left corporate and started my own company. It's not a big SaaS or AI company that's going to make billions, but I do love it. And I love working for myself, and I love spending time with mostly early stage to medium-sized companies. And the honor for me of being able to, when a founder trusts me, brings me into their house, if you will, and trusts me with their baby and their kids, if you will, to help them is really, really, really special. And I have a lot of fun doing it, and I treat it, I believe, with the respect and the specialness that it deserves. So that's what I do these days. And because of that, I learn a ton. I meet so many different people, and I feel a great voice on the different things that I get to see, maybe more than the average person who, works in one company or two companies in a long time. I might, like right now, I'm working with 4 different companies, and next month it might be 3 different ones. So it changes a lot, and that gives me, I think, the ability to learn a lot of different things very, very quickly.
So what experiences from your corporate career do you most draw on as you help these founders kind of scale?
That's a great question. Probably the most, if I had to prioritize, I think would be leadership skills. And even leadership skills means a lot of things, but I feel like this is maybe a little unfair and generalizing a bit, but most founders come from a place of maybe their technical background, maybe they are the product people, maybe more so these days especially, and many of them are younger, which is a great thing. But most of them, in my experience, have not necessarily grew up with proper leadership training and being coached in the right way. For some people, it's natural. Some people can just get it and they're that type of person. But for most, I feel that's a big gap. And there's a lot of things to do to hire, recruit, communicate, coach that are really, really, really important. And I don't care how good your damn product is or how smart you are. If you can't be a good leader, it's going to come back and haunt you very, very quickly, and you're going to fail ultimately. So I think that's probably the biggest gap. I learned a lot about leadership in the corporate world, working for some great companies, took tons of training, was coached very, very well, and learned from, great leaders. And I learned from a lot of shitty leaders, right? Often we learn more from the people that we don't think are great leaders on what not to do, in our opinion. So I've had a lot of experience in leadership. And, the one thing I'd probably say to that is I feel like I'm a good leader, but I'm also very humble to say I'm constantly learning on how to be better, because it is something you got to keep working on.
Yeah. Have you ever met a founder that really wants to work with you and you're like, I'm not a good fit? Sorry.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. In both directions. Sometimes, of course, like I don't win every deal either, like any company. I wish I did. No, but I'll talk to 10 founders and 5 of them will be like, no, you're not a fit for me, Neil, in so many words, to be expected. I'm definitely not a fit for everybody, but it also goes that way for sure, Brian. I've had more than a few opportunities where the person wanted to work with me, but I didn't think it was a good fit for various reasons. And usually one of those reasons is I don't necessarily think they're open to change or open to listening. Sometimes that's the reason where I'll say, sure, you're going to pay me good money. Sure, I can try. Sure, I can get a paycheck. But ultimately, I don't think I'm going to be successful adding value based on the conversations we've had.
Yeah. And what are some scenarios for founders listening? They're like, oh, I really need somebody like Neil with his experience. What are some things that where founders should be like leaning in and reaching out, and where they should be like leaning out and be like, it's probably not a fit?
I mean, for me saying it's probably not a fit, you mean?
Yeah, both. Yeah. For, let's take both. Like for you, like you're going to, for any founders listening, hey, if these 2 or 3 things are happening in your company or with your team or whatever it is, like I'm probably not a fit, and vice versa.
Yeah, and so I mean, you're getting a bit into the functional part of like where's the gaps or the things we need to improve. And for me, most of that's around go to market. That's kind of my superpower. Old enough and been in enough things that I help in lots of different areas, but like any of us, my specialization or my superpower is more on the go-to-market side for sure. So any founder who is, wants to, let's just be general here, wants to improve. Improve means lots of different things depending where you are in the journey. It could mean build and get going to build a consistent go-to-market process that works. It could be we thought we knew what we were doing, but it's not working very well. So how, come in and diagnose what's wrong and improve it. It could be we're doing pretty good, but we want to scale up the team. So I need help on what good looks like in terms of team structure and talent. So lots of different areas, of course, across the board. But most of the problems come, or most of the places where I feel if I haven't been as successful as I want to be, or it wasn't a fit, it's been because, in my opinion, and I've learned to see this earlier in the discussion phase, is really having an honest conversation about, hey, and pretend you're the CEO. Hey, Brian, you're saying you want me to do these things, but if I come in and do this work and recommend XYZ, are you actually open to changing and doing something different? And having a real honest conversation around that. Just like you, Brian, you talk to a ton of founders, probably way more than I do even. I feel like through conversations, when you've had them enough times, you start to learn to spot the people that are truly open-minded to change and taking feedback, and others who are just saying the words but aren't necessarily, but they still think they're right and they're doing the right thing. And quite often I'll have a situation where the investor will say to the CEO, you should bring in someone like Neil to help you, but they don't really want to. But maybe they're doing it because they're told to, in so many words. And that usually doesn't work, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah. So in the spirit of self-realization for founders listening out there, when should they bring in somebody like you? And where does like a fractional CRO like you, that's also kind of a multifaceted coach in this case to founders, when do they know they're struggling with GTM? What should they be kind of watching out for?
Great question. I would say first and foremost, if your strength as a founder is not sales and marketing and GTM, then you should bring in someone who's been there and done that very, very, very early on. If you're a sales and marketing person, you've got lots of experience, that's different. And you might be able to do quite a lot or get down the path without needing someone like me. So it depends on, again, who you are and what your superpowers are. Like anything, it's a team, right? Any good leader knows that they're trying to bring in people that fill gaps that they don't have themselves. So that's the most important thing right out of the gate. Assuming they think sales, marketing, go-to-market is a gap that the company have, then I believe they should be bringing in a fractional CRO early. Knowing how to build properly from the beginning and costs money, of course, but it's going to save you a ton of money and a ton of time later. I've seen too many companies who start building, or maybe even better described, lack of building, they just start picking up a phone and calling and think that they can pick up a phone and say, do you want to buy my product? I'm being a little dramatic, obviously, here. Is all they need to do, right? They think the number of dials with somebody who's aggressive and can make 100 dials a day is their answer to go to market. And maybe that was actually somewhat true 10 years ago, or at least you could get by, but that's not even remotely close today. It is way harder to stand out today than it ever was, which means you've got to build the right tech stack that's going to help you be efficient. You've got to have a system that's going to track what you're doing properly, not because you're babysitting, but because you need to learn what works and what doesn't as quickly as possible so that you can optimize. You need to make sure you know what good looks like in terms of what does an account executive or a BDR look like in terms of skill set. And then what does it look like in terms of their daily behavior? What does good look like is probably the best acronym. A friend of mine, Kevin Dorsey, uses that WIGGL, WGLL. What does good look like for everything? Someone like me should be helping define what good looks like for the process, for the system, for the way you make a cold call, for the way you write an email, for what you do when you go to an event to have a trade show booth, whatever it may be. My job is to help define what good looks like, test it, experiment, optimize. And when you've done all that in all the different ways and channels, that's when you have a, built GTM system or process that you can repeat. But until you know what good looks like and you can show that it's worked, you're just testing and experimenting, which is good. You should be doing that. But too many founders think they can just add bodies or make more calls, and they're scaling now. And that's not even remotely true.
Yeah. So I think like Y Combinator famously wants, I think they advise founders to do founder-led sales up to a certain ARR and then start scaling the sales team. At what point should a founder start thinking about scaling their GTM team besides a fractional who can tell them how to do it? And like, is there an ARR mark that you kind of look to basically go, okay, now it's kind of probably time to hire an account exec or SDR, maybe a demand gen marketer to generate leads? Like, how do you kind of advise clients and early stage founders in those different milestones?
Yeah, great. I think we get caught up in a number like, at 5 million ARR, you should start doing X. Every company is so different, right? I mean, even at 5 million, just use 5 million. Well, is that 10 customers? Is that 1,000 customers? There's so much nuance in every business and what they're selling. Is it enterprise? Is it a complex sales process? Is it transactional? So I get really scared about all these generalizations. I feel like founders like to, and we all do. We go to what's simple and easy and sounds good and something we remember. But the reality is every business is different. When do you start, ramping up is, when you have figured out the process. Now, whether that's at 1 million ARR, 2 million, 5 million, it depends on how many times you have done it to prove that it's effective. For me, this is where my background in like research comes in. Not that I do statistical analysis to prove the point, but if you and I were running a company, Brian, and we ran our GTM process, let's keep it real simple and pretend it was cold calling and emailing and LinkedIn, and we had a particular way of going about it, and we did this, and then this, and then this, and we proved that it worked pretty well. If we did it 5 times and it kind of worked, we'd say, okay, maybe we're onto something. Right? But are we now going to all of a sudden go and hire 10 people, invest $1 million and ask for more funding to scale? Maybe not. Maybe we need to get 30 or 40 repetitions in to prove that it works. So really understanding kind of your sample size of running the process, I think is really, really important. And it does vary greatly. If you're an enterprise business and you're selling something at 100 ACV, right? 100K a year ACV, I could sell 10 of these. That doesn't, what's your conversion rate, right? I sold 10, but I went out and it was 100 prospects that I was after and I only converted 10 of them. Does that mean you nailed it and you know what good looks like? On the surface, I'd say probably not, right? But I have to dive into that data to understand that. But if I just said, we're at 1 million ARR, it's time to ramp up, you might say, great, let's ramp up, give them more money, start investing. So I think you got to be really, really careful. The devil is in the details and in the data, like most things.
How does a founder know when to scale up versus potentially pivot, right? Because a lot of these $0 to $1 million ARR companies and even 0 to 500K, let's call it. How do you know, like, when you have something versus like you haven't quite nailed it? Like, I guess that's a veiled attempt at me asking, like, how do you know a founder has product market fit and it's really, really time to scale go to market versus like, hey, I'm looking at the data, we've run some experiments, and I'm just not seeing the conversion rates that indicate that we should scale.
Yeah, great. So for me, product market fit means a lot of different things. And it's not only just about, obviously quantity comes into it, right? You can't have product market fit if you sold one product. But do you need to have sold 1,000? No. To me, it's really about the customers. There needs to be enough customers, and even enough is like, how do you define that? Is it 10, 20, 50? Depends on the business, depends on the size.
Yeah.
But whatever enough you can define enough as, it's really now understanding how the customers are using said product or service. Is it actually solving a critical problem that they have that they will retain, that they will stay on board, that they're not going to switch out the first time someone comes and says, I'll give it to you for 10% off your competitor? You really got to dive into, I think, the relationships and the retention and so on of the business before you can start to say, we've got it, we've nailed it. And so it's a short way of saying it depends, which is kind of a bullshit response to your question, but it truly does. Once you've done that, once you can figure that out, though, that is when I think you can feel confident and comfortable to then diagnose, because you said, Brian, maybe you've got a lot of customers, again, whatever a lot or enough is, but the conversion rates aren't necessarily there. That doesn't mean you don't have product market fit. Maybe you just need to optimize your go-to-market process, right? So again, I'm a big, as you might tell, very data-driven, which is why setting this up at the beginning is important, because we can't answer these questions if we don't have data, right? You're a VC, right? If I was your founder and I come to you and I talk about, oh, we've got 15 customers and they love it. Trust me, Brian, everything's great. And you say, well, is it time to scale up? And I say, heck yes, it's time to scale up. We're doing great. Of course, knowing you, Brian, it's like, sounds good, Neil. I know you're the founder. You're a little biased. Show me the data. Right? Show me what the customers are talking about. Show me what they're saying. Show me the retention. Show me if you have figured out how to optimize your go-to-market process so that if we do put $1 against it, we know that dollar is properly spent and is going to pay back. And you can't do any of that if we haven't set it up from the very beginning with a proper system, proper tracking, proper attitude towards how important the data is within the system. And so many companies leave all that stuff till later, right? Sadly, because it costs money. It's hard and it costs money. But then, again, if I was your founder and I'm a year in and I can't answer any of these questions because I haven't set it up properly, we're not going to be able to make the right decisions on where we scale up or, ramp up anything if we can't do that properly.
What imagine you're coming in and it's a blank slate. So far they've just been using Gmail and just doing their own sales. So you get to come in, they hired you. Like, what tools and systems do you like to kind of implement? Imagine this is like your average B2B software company. ACVs are $5,000, something like that. What's your tool stack look like that you like to implement?
Yeah. So a few things that I favor, like anyone, we've all got
you've seen a lot. I mean, as a fractional, you've seen them all, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot, and I'll admit when there's things. I mean, listen, no one's seen it all because there's every day 10 more things pop up that you should use this. And Neil, why don't you know about this? It's literally impossible to keep up and know everything. And so sometimes we gravitate to things we know, or we have relationships where someone runs the company and you think the product is amazing. So like anyone, I'm biased to what I know and prefer, like anyone else. That all said, as a caveat, used to be and still am a big HubSpot fan. So I'll start with traditional CRM world. I still am, but I'm opened my mind quite a bit to the new world of more AI native CRMs for various reasons. One is my preference for founders who want to, I'm going to say that, how do I say this in the politically correct way? I like companies who want to provide great customer service and help you and are willing to develop products and take your feedback versus huge, large enterprises who don't give two shits about you. Maybe that's the best way of saying it.
Yeah, you're one of 10,000 customers on their system. Yeah, they're not going to really pay attention.
Yeah, so I've had some not great experiences with some of the big guys, we'll just say recently, from a sales perspective. And there's a new company called Revo, who's a CRM, raised a lot of money recently. I have a client of mine that's literally onboarding them right now, really impressed with the product, really cool. So I'd lean toward, and there's lots of great AI native CRMs out there. I'd encourage anyone to like do your due diligence and pick one. Don't just automatically go to HubSpot or Salesforce. Without a doubt, that would be my first thing. I'm huge. So if we're talking B2B, then LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a huge part of what I'm doing in my go-to-market process, without a doubt. Maybe the most important tool is LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Depends on the ICP, but generally speaking.
Why is that so important? I think I know, but for founders listening who are not using it, maybe you could explain what Sales Navigator is, why it's so important.
I'm going to answer that two ways. One, the LinkedIn part of LinkedIn Sales Navigator is just as important as the sales or sales navigator part. I think brand and content and the trust you build on a platform like LinkedIn, one, it's free, not Sales Navigator, but LinkedIn itself. And so to be able to get your brand out there and start creating a name for yourself from day one, I think is critically important. So many companies leave. We've all heard this. I don't need to do marketing right now. I'll get to that later. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes founders can make. And I think one of the easiest things you can do is begin to build a presence and post and have a voice on LinkedIn. So brand and content, huge. If I was building if you were my partner, Brian, we'd be going big on LinkedIn from day one on our story, on what we're doing, on why we care and what problems we're solving, and educate and entertain. There's so much leads and trust that can be built from that if done properly. And then Sales Navigator, email, we've all heard this stuff before. I believe deeply, depending on our ICP, that cold calling can still be very, very effective when done properly with right data. Email, while it can still be good, of course, when done properly, the facts are it is 7,000x more emails today than it was 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So irrelevant of how good you are, it is literally harder to break through on email than it ever was before. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Doesn't mean you should give up, but it is just significantly harder. Therefore, and we can talk email later, but because that's so much harder than it used to be, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a tool to learn about your customer, to understand their hierarchy and do account mapping, to reach out to them in a way that hopefully when done properly is a lot less salesy than an email usually comes off like. And if you lead with kindness and helpfulness and value as opposed to buy my product, you want to have a meeting tomorrow? And that's hard for a lot of people. But if you can do that, then you have a long road ahead of you for your business. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I think, is the core tool to do that. Email's still good, but LinkedIn Sales Navigator can be a big play.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pick on a category here. I'm an AI for law firms. So I know who I'm targeting. It's law firms. And we could get into like how you target what segment of law firms. But imagine we have our ICP pretty crystally defined. And so, we go to Sales Nav, we search it. There's 10,000 law firms, right? That I could potentially sell to out of 50,000. I'm just making numbers up.
Yeah, of course.
Our ICP has about 10,000 out of the 50,000 law firms. 10,000 is definitely like our sweet spot. What are you reaching out to? Imagine we know who to reach out to. It's, blah, blah, senior partner at blah, blah law firm. What are you saying in that first outreach?
So I'm going to take us one step back and then I'll answer your question. The one step back is I care a lot about my ICP and the buyer personas, but I also, when it comes to content and brand, I also care a little less. Meaning, what I mean by that is, even though I might not be speaking right to Brian, the managing partner of the law firm, it's possible that Steve isn't a lawyer, but Steve is Brian's next door neighbor. And so a lot of people come to, I don't need to post on LinkedIn. I don't need to have a presence because lawyers never spend time on LinkedIn. Well, the reality is first of all, that's not really true. But even if it was true, everyone knows a lawyer. Everyone has a lawyer. Everyone's neighbor is a lawyer. Creating that brand, this is where the network effect comes. This is where referrals come. Hey, Brian, I saw this post from this guy, Neil, about how he helps law firms and we're having dinner. And I thought, have you ever seen this guy? Like that happens all the time, the flywheel effect. So really, really important. The second thing, to come back to your question, is what am I saying to Brian, the managing partner of the big law firm? I think I'm starting by I'm not saying anything about my product. I don't lead in me, my opinion is I don't lead with, Brian, managing partner of the law firm, do you have problem X? Because if so, I have a product that can help you. Let me have 30 minutes next week. X% chance you're just deleting or ignoring or not even reading that if you can smell that a mile away. That's just the reality. And it's not because I'm not right or maybe I'm the best damn product in the world, but you don't know that and you don't know me. So all you see is a shitty sales email and I never get a chance to truly tell you how incredible I might be or how I could help you. So I lead with something that's valuable, right? Or I try to lead with things that are valuable, right? What am I doing that might help your organization? I don't mean my product, but do I see that you're looking for 7 paralegals and I have 2 friends who are paralegals looking for a job. And I thought I would just mention, if you need somebody great, I can introduce you. Is there something where I saw that your company has a strategic objective to become more AI driven this year, and not my product, but there's this company I heard about that really helps law firms do this. My friend works there. Do you want an introduction? Right? Anything that is truly valuable and helpful, right? I might not nail it. Brian, the managing partner, may say, no, thank you. That's fine. Or I might not be as valuable as I think, but it's less about, did I get a 10 out of 10 for like the result? It's the effort. It's how I'm presenting myself, with kindness and helpfulness and so on. And let's be honest, that person might know, right? Brian, the managing partner, you might know that I've never heard of this Neil guy, so he's probably wants something from me at some point here. Like, you're not an idiot. You get that. But it doesn't matter. There's still a huge difference on how you lead and how you approach. And if I can actually truly be helpful, you're going to want to have a relationship with me. You may or may not want to buy my product tomorrow or a month from now or 6 months from now, but I'm not going to sell my product to you. I want to build relationships with Neil, the fractional CRO, with Brian, the VC. And we may or may not ever work together, right? But I'm putting that aside. I'm reaching out because I might learn something from Brian. I think I can help Brian learn some stuff. And maybe Brian wants to hire me one day, maybe not. But if I do what I do with enough great people, my business will benefit. But more importantly, I'm going to benefit personally, and I'm going to learn a lot, and I'm going to be happy and meet great people. I believe if you start with that, no matter what you're selling, the dollars will follow.
Yeah.
I really do believe that.
So let's talk about hiring a fractional CRO. So, if I go to my LinkedIn, and I'm a founder and I search fractional CRO, I've decided I definitely need this. I don't specialize in GTM. I think we're doing okay, but I think we could do better and optimize our go-to-market motion. I do a short list. I ask for referrals. Let's just say I come up with a list of 5. How do I interview these 4 or 5 people I got introduced to that I shortlisted? Like, what are some questions founders should be asking you when they interview you, Neil, on hiring you and potentially other CROs, fractional CROs?
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, fit's important, right? So we should talk as deeply as we need to about personality fit, about communication styles, about enjoying working together. I ask a lot of questions about that, and I make them ask me questions on it. If you're the founder and I'm the fractional CRO, Brian, I want you to want to pick up the phone and talk to me and ask me questions and chat. Not because you're paying me, but because I hopefully help you learn, I give good advice, I help you improve the company, and we have fun together, right? The minute that you are like, oh, fuck, I got to talk, sorry for swearing. Oh, geez,
you're okay.
Fuck, I have to talk to Neil. It's our weekly call. Well, geez, man, we should not be working together if you ever think about that. And I want to avoid that. So first and foremost, the fit, do we actually like each other? I think is important. Now, some people will say that's not as important. Who cares if they're driving value? And that's fine. We're all entitled to our opinion. I just think life is damn short. And if you're going to pay me a lot of money to help you, you better damn well like me. And if not, find someone else who you actually do like. So that would be number 1. Number 2 is really being able to execute and proof that you can do so. And what I mean by that, and this is what we get into, people say the word fractional CRO, but they often mean different things. When I say fractional CRO, and I think when you say it too, Brian, it's not a quote unquote, just an advisor or a consultant. It's not, Brian, I looked at your data and your business, and here are the 5 things that you should do. There you go. Good luck. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who is in it, who gets their hands dirty, who truly has the desire and the time and the ability to say, Brian, I'm going to help you do whatever it damn well takes to help your company be successful. My superpowers are A, B, C, D, and E. And if those superpowers are valuable for your business and what you need right now, great. I'm going to do whatever it takes using those superpowers to help you. And I'm going to get my hands frickin' dirty, whatever that may take, just like a full-time CRO hopefully would. And so, the old analogy or cliche, ideas are a frickin' dime a dozen. And they really are, especially now, right? You and I can go on any of the AI tools and come up with a go-to-market strategy that sounds pretty good out of the gate in 5 minutes if we wanted to. That's not hard. What's hard is executing, optimizing, tracking, seeing what works, understanding what good looks like, and going from a plan, which is not hard to create, to 6 months from now, successful go-to-market process that works, that we can now invest in and scale up and ramp up and grow this company. That's the hard part. And so having someone who's done that, who understands that, who is willing to get their hands dirty, I think is critically important. And that comes with a real deep discussion and honest conversation. It also comes with checking up on them, because people can say anything in interviews. So no one should ever hire me, or anyone else for that matter, without talking to their 5 past clients and saying, what did Neil do for you? Is he saying all the right things, but did he actually act like he's saying for you, CEO? And if none of that's there, then don't hire them, because that's what a fractional CRO should be doing. It's not the smartest guy in the room. I like to think I'm smart, but you're not looking for the smartest guy. You're looking for the guy who's going to, bleed the color of your company and put everything they can into helping you be successful. That's an early stage company. We all have to have that attitude.
What does the typical engagement cycle look like when you onboard a client? Is it like a 90-day kind of minimum for certain hours a week? What does that look like?
Everyone might give you a different answer on that, depending who you're talking to. For me, it is almost exactly what you just said. I usually have 2 kind of minimum commitment packages, if you will. One is a day approximately. We don't track hours in the same way as maybe some people might, but I try to put some constraints around it. You need to, so people have at least some ballpark guidelines of what to expect from me. So I'll say approximately a day a week for a 3-month minimum. Or if it's a company that has significantly more need, it might be approximately 2 days a week for a 3-month minimum. I almost always start at 3-month minimum to be risk averse for both myself, but also for the founder. I'm not the cheapest guy around. And so I'm conscious that most early stage companies, every dollar counts, as it should. And so I want them to be risk averse too. And I want them to say, Neil, if you're adding huge value 3 months from now, great, we'll do another 3 months if it makes sense. But I don't want to hold them to any long-term contract. That's not what a fractional CRO should be. My goal is to put myself out of a job in many ways as quickly as possible, or at least as soon as it makes sense. Because I want to look at the founder and say, look what we've done. We've gone from nothing, or from no GTM, to a system where we can look at the data and see that it's working. And we can feel comfortable that if you put $1 million into the team and the system and the technology now, the data shows that we can ramp this up just by doing it more often with more people or more tools these days. And my goal is to do that. So then they can say, great, don't need you anymore, Neil. Now's the time to get a full-time CRO or a VP of sales. And then I'd offer to help them find that right person, because that's not me. But that's my job. That's a job well done, is when I get fired because they're ready to graduate to someone full-time.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. How does a founder know when to cut ties? And let's take 2 scenarios. One is cut ties. Hey, this isn't working out with Neil or whoever. Yep. And then 2 would be like, hey, it worked out so good. Now I need to have somebody full time.
The data will tell us the second one that you just said, the latter, because we'll be able to look and see that we have run the process. Here's how many, we'll be able to look at the activity and say, here's the activity we've been doing by person and overall of all that activity. What's the conversion from emails and calls and events and all the different things we're doing to meetings booked, and from meetings booked to SQLs, and from SQLs to sales cycle and conversions through the sales stage to wins. And we'll be able to see the data, and we'll know by looking at the data and comparing to what good looks like benchmark wise and to ourselves, Are we getting better at that? Are we getting worse? Is our conversion rate from SQL to win only 5%? If so, clearly something's wrong. Is it 30, 35, 40%? Great, we're doing something pretty well here. When we could show that the data justifies, whether it's more salespeople or a full-time CRO, the data should tell us the truth. It's not the opinion of me or the founder should almost be not what's important. Our opinion should be based off of the data. My opinion will be, look, the data says we're crushing it here. Now's the time that you need more than me a day a week. Now's the time we should go from 2 AEs to an improved system because we have capacity problems right now. So how do we solve those capacity problems? Is it leveraging technology and AI more and or building out the team more? Either one of those might be the answer or they both might be the answer. But until we can see that it's working, right? The simple way of thinking of it, if we have one person or two people and they're not converting at good rates and we're not closing deals at the rates they should, hiring more people is going to not do anything. All it's going to do is continue doing the same thing because we haven't figured out how to be successful yet. It's easy to say, oh, they're not a great salesperson. That's bullshit most of the time. It's our job as the founder or my job or whoever is in charge, the leadership, to create the process that will allow them to be consistent. I want to find the next AE and say, hey man, you're pretty good. Sounds like you've been really good in your past job. I feel really confident with the system we've built that when you come in, I know what good looks like. I'm going to show you what that is, and you're going to be successful right out of the gate.
Let's talk a little bit about Porch. You've built this community of founders. What is that?
Sorry, Brian, I got cut off there. You asked about Porch?
Yeah. I'd love to learn about Porch. What is that community and why'd you build it and what is it?
Yeah, Porch is, thank you for asking that. That's a business that's close to my heart. So Porch is a community, or we call it a club, for immigrant and international entrepreneurs in Canada and the US that my son and I built together. We're very passionate about it. We saw a few years back, we saw a big gap in the marketplace. I was doing some work with an accelerator, an incubator here in Canada that focused a lot on immigrants, and they did a good job, but there was a huge gap in the marketplace for what I saw as proper support for immigrant entrepreneurs in Canada. And this exists in the US too, in my belief. And I don't mean more accelerators. I mean the personal side of the journey of immigrant and international entrepreneurs, right? There's a ton of different accelerators and incubators and courses and all kinds of things that anyone could sign up for and take. But there's not a lot that, or there wasn't when we started this, it was becoming more and more, but there wasn't a lot that really dealt with the personal side of it. So if you're new to a country or not native to the country, you might not know some of the basic things that many of us take for granted, right? How to open your bank account here, how to get a driver's license if you're from a different country, how to make friends. We're all different. We all have different cultures, right? There's a lot of things. We at Porch, we subscribe to the idea that it's really easy to give someone here's a 7-minute course on how you should do your investor pitch. I mean, you and I could do a Google search and find 4 billion frickin' people giving advice on that. But try getting true, honest, heartfelt help on, I'm new to the country and I'm lonely and I'm stressed out and I'm trying to run my business and I can't do a damn investor pitch because I can't get out of bed and I have no friends. And I'm being kind of dramatic here. But a lot of immigrant entrepreneurs dealing with these things that many of us take for granted. And we wanted to build a club, a community to be there for each other, right? Just to help each other on their journey. They're all entrepreneurs in the club, right? But we don't talk only about how to build a business. We do that too, but we also just talk about each other and what are you going through? And, we bring in speakers on different topics like how to deal with stress and how to build your networks and how in Canada and the US, how to be a little more direct sometimes in your conversation to be able to get a yes or a no from people, which is often different in other countries. So we have a lot of those kinds of conversations and we love it. We built a business around it. The business is half for profit, but we also have a not-for-profit arm where we raise money and give a lot of money away to help them. So we give out grants as well. We love it. It's a important mission for us, Brian, and I hope it goes on for many years.
Let's talk about some practical advice, kind of circling back to some of our earlier conversation. If you're advising a founder, they're early, they just raised their first money, 250, 500K. What GTM, and so far they've just been building, maybe they have 1 or 2 customers. Now they're ready to start really trying to acquire customers. What GTM work should they start immediately?
Yeah. So if I was them, I would start with branding and content right away. I think there's never such thing as too early. Start telling your story, start building your profile. Nowadays, a lot of founder-led brands are very successful if they do that properly. That can help them with sales down the line. So that's one thing I would start doing. The other is I wouldn't even start thinking deeply about the word GTM if I only have 2 customers. My first discussion, and this is discussion I have with a lot of founders, is when they say, okay, what should I be doing? What process should I build? What tool should I use? And I say, how many customers do you have? And they say 1 or 2. I say, okay, well, here's the first question. Forget everything else. What is your best chance to find 3 more customers? That's it. I don't think you need to go build a whole process and system and, buy and invest in a lot of tools or even hire me. Ask yourself, you need 1 more customer next week. What are you going to do to get 1 more customer? And if you think about it in those baby steps for now, later on, we want to talk about scaling and ramping and so on. But like we said, that's not until we have more than 2 customers. And so to go from 2 to 5 or 5 to 10, right? The first thing is what's the best way to do that? And quite often, it's not a go-to-market system with high-tech tools and all kinds of fractional CRO advice. It's who do I know? Who's in my network? Who can I rely on? Do I have angels or investors or anything that can help me? Who can I be introduced to? What is the closest way to great conversations with people who are in my ICP? And if you do that quite oftenly, you'll find 10 great people you can talk to that are the buyer persona you're looking for. And if you can talk to 10, 5 of them might say, interesting, tell me more. And of the 5, 2 of them might say, hell yeah, I need what you're talking about. And to me, that's the best advice I can give at that early stage. Don't complicate it. Don't build too much. If you're going from 2 to 5, how are you going to get 3 more in the next 2 weeks? And it's not all this stuff. It's your network, who you talk to, your investors, your friends, maybe your parents. I don't know, but you got to ask. You got to put yourself out there and get that help.
Imagine you're a pre-seed investor like we are. GTM is definitely something we care about and ask about. You have a couple, you only have 30 minutes with the founder. So it's like 2 or 3 questions you're going to ask them about GTM. What are those 2 or 3 questions?
Sorry, if I'm a pre-seed investor asking the founder?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them to deeply explain to me about the problem they're solving. I want to see that they truly, deeply understand their customer and the industry and the problem that they're solving. I don't care what product you're building. If you don't truly understand that, you won't know how to build your product properly. You won't know how to talk to them. You won't know how to sell to them or market to them. So I'd go really, really deep on that. If I was a pre-seed investor about to cut a check, they'd have to prove to me that they got it. Clearly, big red flag. If they are not the best damn expert on that topic, then clearly that's a huge problem. The next thing I'd go into would be a little bit about go-to-market, and not because I'm looking for perfect answers. Again, I don't care if they know exactly what the right go-to-market is later, but I want to see that they have thought about it, that they understand that they're either going to get help if they're not the sales and marketing expert in the room, that they're open to, hey, this isn't my specialty, but here's who I've spoken to. Here's what I'm going to do. I need to be able to see that they're thinking about that. And the reason that's important to me, Brian, is I believe, and you have a lot of expertise in this, in today's world, more than ever, creating a product without getting into how good it is the easiest part of the process. Creating a phenomenal product is really, really, really hard, but just creating any old damn product is really easy. And so now it's about, how am I going to market? How am I going to stand out? How am I going to communicate? And I want to see that they understand that and they don't think that they can just create a product and be successful. And I need to feel really good that they're realistic about the world we're in. We've all heard the analogy that your only moat anymore is your go-to-market, and I believe that deeply.
Yeah.
So I need to understand that they get that. Anyone who thinks this is going to be freaking easy is a big red flag. And you're going to force me to think of a third. I think the third would be for me to dive into them, like who they are and their ambition and their drive. And I'm not an experienced investor like you are, Brian, but for me, I've done a little bit of investing, but for me, it is about believing in and buying into the founder. as much as it is about, hey, they've got a great problem they solve and they're solving it in a really cool way, as can the founder make it happen? Are they really driven? Are they going to work their butt off for it? And the reason that's important is obviously for what's right in front of us is that business, but also if I'm going to invest my money and my time in them, I need to believe in them deeply and want to do that. And this business may or may not work, which may or may not be their fault, but investing in them for me is a relationship. And it might mean their next business is the one that works really, really well. So I think of it like that. So those are the three areas I think I'd dive into first.
Yeah, love that. Let's talk about how GTM is changing. I mean, we have things like OpenClaw and Claude Cowork with plugins and, agentic swarming of things happening. How do you think GTM is going to change in the next few years with, especially with AI it's already kind of accelerated, some parts of the GTM stack, kind of looking forward. What are you excited about right now and looking forward to over the next, 2 or 3 years?
I'm not going to pretend to say that I know what the next 2 or 3 years is going to look like. I don't even know if I can predict the next 60 days at the speed we're going right now. It's changing so fast. I think I get super excited and scared about how fast it's going, right? It's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. If you're a self-learner like I am, which we should all be these days, I think you've got to be open to learning and testing and experimenting in order to stay, keep up with the Joneses, if you will. How much of it is hype? And I don't mean AI's hype. Not for a second do I mean that. But there's so many tools that are coming out, and some of them will exist in 3 months and 90% of them won't. It's really more about, I think, our ability to figure out how to be more efficient and more effective with all these different tools and technologies. And if you're I think I think we need to be in GTM constantly experimenting in a culture of experimentation. And that doesn't just mean if I'm running a company, it doesn't just mean, hey, everyone, are you using ChatGPT to help you with your emails or to do that? Like, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about creating real use cases to solve a problem in the company. We might align on here's 2 things that are going on in the company that we can improve. How can we leverage said AI/tools to improve that? And how can we run in a real test and experiment to see if we can improve the company? It's more than just, hey, Bob, I hope you're using AI and I hope you're being more efficient than you were 3 months ago. Of course, that's table stakes these days, but you're not going to make any real improvement in GTM unless you're truly focused in experiments. And you got to give people the time and space to do that. It all takes time. If I'm the CRO and I expect they're all going to go all do this and learn this and run experiments on the side of their desk while I'm also mandating that they do their day job too, I've got to make space for it and give them permission and freedom to test and to learn and to experiment. So many tools out there. I mean, you just mentioned like 3 of them, and I'm just scratching the surface of what the hell those even are. I'm getting, I saw the other day the Molt, was it called Molt Book? Was it?
Yeah. The social network for agents. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, holy cow, man. Exciting, cool, scary.
Yeah.
All those words come into it at the same time. Crazy world we're living in, but it's fun if you have the right attitude.
Fun time to be alive.
For sure.
As we record this, if anybody's watching in the future, it's early 2026 and OpenCloud just came out. Anyway, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. What's a GTM belief you hold that most early stage investors and founders maybe get wrong?
The first thing that comes to mind is I would go back to what I said earlier, Brian. So for fear of being repetitive, I think I would say marketing, branding, content is 10 times more important than you think it is.
Love that. What's a pattern you've noticed in startups that ultimately break out?
You mean that the startup breaks out from? Or what do you mean?
Yeah, you've advised lots of different startups and some have gone on to be very successful, I'm sure, and some have, flamed out miserably.
Got it.
Is there a pattern you've noticed for the ones that break out?
Yeah, I'd say the ability to pivot's a strong word. I don't mean pivot their product or their direction so much as pivot a plan. So their ability to understand what's working, what's not working, and make fast decisions. I do subscribe to the idea that you need to make a decision when you've got like 60% of the information if you want to keep moving quickly. So a founder needs to be able to say, I don't have every fact. I don't know 100% that this is the exact right decision, but we need to move, and I'd rather iterate and move now. And so being able to say this campaign's working, this direction's moving, this GTM motion is working or not working, I think it's really important to be able to run those quick experiment and then move on. So I think that's an important part of kind of goes back to the founder skill as well. But a big thing you see within companies that you feel confident are going to figure it out, even if they haven't yet.
What's the biggest GTM myth still circulating in early stage startups?
The biggest myth. Well, I guess if you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, it's probably just that you can email a shit ton of people and be successful. No matter how many times we know that's not true. If you spend any time on LinkedIn, you'll still see dozens of posts a day from people saying, I could email 1,000 people in 5 minutes and get you 20 booked meetings, guaranteed. And I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's, I win the lottery once every 20 years too. So, I mean, it's bullshit. And, it's a myth. It's generally a myth.
Amazing. Well, where can folks find you online if they want to learn more?
The best place would be LinkedIn. So I spend a lot. Maybe you heard me talk about it a few times today. So I probably spend more time than I should on LinkedIn, whether it's posting or communicating with people, reading and learning. I do love it. I have a website, weitzmanGTM.com as well. I'm on other socials, but LinkedIn's my main go-to. So anyone's free to DM me at any time. That would be probably the easiest place, Brian.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. I learned a ton. I'm sure founders listening learned a ton as well. Appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me and listening. So thank you, Brian. It was great to talk with you again.
Thanks, Neil.